At the end of the day, Nalini, this is what the Uddhav Thackeray faction is saying. That not really a setback, we have time. 2 weeks, the matter is going to be heard again.
Well, yes, obviously they will try and look at the silver lining in this case, but at the same time what needs to be remembered is that even in accordance with the Supreme Court order passed today, Eknath Shinde and his MLAs will be continued to be called the real Shiv Sena, and they will have the right to not just use the Shiv Sena name but also the bow and arrow symbol. Something that's been Uddhav Thackeray and his family's legacy for years has now officially been transferred to Eknath Shinde and his MLAs after this Election Commission order, and the Supreme Court very rightly so has said that it's not going to interfere in the order after the proceedings before the Election Commission have been held, and after that the Eknath Shinde camp has emerged victorious. But at the same time they've also said that they are willing to look into the larger aspects of this issue as to whether or not the order was right in its merits is something that they will look into in the near future, which is why they've asked within 2 weeks for Eknath Shinde to respond to this petition that has been filed by the Uddhav Thackeray faction. Essentially, in the response, Eknath Shinde is expected to defend the Election Commission order. It is also likely, Sneha, that in the coming days, Election Commission themselves may make some arguments before the court in this aspect, because it is their order which is under challenge through this petition that has been filed by the Eknath Shinde faction. An important thing to remember is that Supreme Court has kept these two issues separate, because remember there's an original hearing going on before a 5-judge bench of the Constitution of the Supreme Court where they are looking into the finer aspects of what exactly went down in June 2021 when Uddhav Thackeray was unseated from his seat as the Chief Minister and Eknath Shinde had taken over. And this petition that has challenged the Election Commission order, which essentially pertains to who is the real owner of the name and the symbol of Shiv Sena, has been kept separate from that matter, which means that the Supreme Court will be looking at it separately. The Uddhav camp can hope for some relief in the coming 2 weeks once a response is filed by the Eknath Shinde faction. But till then, status quo will be maintained. It's been made very clear by the Supreme Court. There will be no interference in the Election Commission order, and Eknath Shinde and his MLAs will continue to be recognized as the real Shiv Sena and will be allowed to use the bow and arrow symbol as well.
You know, when it comes to the bow and arrow symbol and to be identified as the real Shiv Sena, so to speak, there is a concern on the Uddhav Thackeray camp, and what are they going to do is my question. Will they have a legal route open on that front as well if it comes to, say, then taking over the bank account, for example? Isn't that going to be a big problem for the Uddhav Thackeray camp, Nalini?
Well, Sneha, if we have to simplify this for our audience, then I would say that in this entire battle between Uddhav Thackeray and Eknath Shinde over the use of the bow and arrow symbol and the Shiv Sena name, round 1 and round 2 have both gone to Eknath Shinde. But at the same time, this is not the end of the match. The game is still much longer, and we'll have to wait and see how things pan out before the top court, because just because there's no interim relief for Uddhav Thackeray does not mean there cannot be any final relief. In the long run, Uddhav Thackeray might end up convincing the Supreme Court that the bow and arrow symbol as well as the Shiv Sena name should be assigned to him and his MLAs. But at the same time, that depends completely on the kind of legal arguments that Kapil Sibal, Abhishek Manu Singhvi and Devdutt Kamath, all three top legal eagles who are arguing before the Supreme Court on this petition, make, and exactly how they are able to convince the 3 judges hearing this case that it is Uddhav Thackeray who should be recognized as the real Shiv Sena. In the interim, of course, there is no relief for him, but it seems like they are playing the longer game, because one very interesting thing that Kapil Sibal had said during yesterday's arguments was that all of this is politics and win and losses keep continuing to go on. But at the same time, the one thing that should not be diminished is the institution and the faith of the people in the institution, whether it's the Supreme Court, the Election Commission or the Speaker's office, which is why they've urged the Supreme Court to look into the finer constitutional aspects of the 10th schedule that deals with the anti-defection law, and also the powers of the Election Commission to go ahead and declare such an order which has recognized the Eknath Shinde faction as the real Shiv Sena. So the Supreme Court will be looking into the finer aspects of this. There is of course no relief coming in for Uddhav Thackeray in the short run, but that does not mean that all hope is lost. They are going to continue fighting like we've seen them do for the past year, and hopefully hope for something good coming out of this entire matter 2 weeks later once the Supreme Court assembles again to take up these petitions.